Hello everyone, welcome to another Starcraft 2 replay. This one's going to take place on Zelnaga Caverns. I'm Ketroc, the red Terran in the bottom left-hand position, and the top right we have Arnold, the blue Protoss. Now I'm making this replay just to talk a little bit about some of the conclusions I've come up lately versus Protoss. Been having a lot of problems with them late game. And basically, I think the solution to beating Protoss late game is don't allow it to get to late game. There is just so much trouble versus them. So I'm trying to concentrate more on analyzing the replays and watching hey, what point in this match could I make an effective push, early to mid game, because that's when you really gotta do it versus Protoss. Protoss is just, once they get that critical number of Colossus, it's too tough to deal with. Same once they get Templar, especially once they have that Kadarian amulet where they can warp in Templar that can immediately storm. Unbelievably powerful versus the Bio Ball. And yeah, a mixture of Colossus and Templar is just the worst of both worlds together. Also, as my army gets bigger, yes, it's more upgrade and more powerful, but it's also just becoming a larger target for these area of effect abilities of the Colossus and the Templar. So I think if we're both at 100 supply, I may have the army advantage, but if we're both at 200 supply, I'm devastated. And yes, there are ways to kind of counter it. If you get just the right Viking count where it's not too much or not too little, it can work well versus taking out the Colossus without losing the ground advantage. And if you use Cloaked Ghost, sometimes you can get in on the Protoss and EMP his Templar before they can throw down the storms. EMPing them afterwards doesn't really help a lot because it's the initial storms that do the most damage. So if everything goes perfect in a battle, it can be okay. But the majority of the time things aren't going to go perfect and it's just going to be a mess. And honestly, versus Templar and Colossus, I have to admit it, I don't have the micro for it. I mean, I got a lead with my Cloaked Ghosts, EMP their Templar, follow up immediately with my stimmed army, just get the right Viking count to attack the Colossus, got focus fire the Colossus, dodge what little storms he is able to throw down. It's very tough to do it perfectly, and of course just minor adjustments by a Protoss can completely destroy that. Versus any smart Protoss, the Cloaked Ghost thing is only going to work once, then he's going to keep Observer with his army from that point forward. And I've noticed a lot of Protoss these days are realizing how awesome feedback is, and they're all over feedbacking my Ghost to death and also feedbacking my Medivacs as well. And if you don't know what his exact mix of Colossus to Gateway units is, you can really screw up by having the wrong Viking count, either too many or too little. However, getting to a critical number of Colossus or getting Templar tech both take a long time, so I believe there is windows in this game where I should have the advantage. And that's what I'm going to talk about a little bit in this replay. So if I can attack when I have the advantage, obviously I can make a lot of damage or even win the game there. But even if it's a draw, it's still good for me because, if we're both at 120 supply and then we have a battle and we both get knocked down to 60 supply, that's good for me because it's once we reach over 150 supply that it's a lot of trouble for me. So I went to 2 gateway opening when I saw my fast expand and sent out his first 3 zealots, but yeah, it's not going to be enough. They arrived a little bit late. He should have also sent them in piecemeal, send his first zealot first, just so I could pick away at stuff before I'd have my fortress and bunker up. So he's pulling back and throwing down a couple more gateways. He's going to go a little bit gateway heavy, but I don't think let's try his APM. Well, his APM's, it's only 61. Yeah, he doesn't have the greatest APM in the world, so I don't actually mind him throwing down a little more production buildings than he needs. Just because if you're not perfectly on top of it, always producing from these buildings, you do need to throw down an extra one just to spend all your money. Another thing I want to talk about here is my gas. Now, as soon as I get my fortress, I pull all my SCVs off gas and to get barracks up. When do you put them back on gas is another thing I kind of noticed from watching this replay that I do a little bit wrong. I would say as soon as you get your third barracks complete, immediately put 3 on each gas and get these gas going as soon as possible if you don't feel you're getting rushed. Because if you don't feel you're getting rushed, you're going to want to tech towards medevacs, you're going to want to get your upgrades, you're going to want to get your ghosts, and all these things are very gas heavy, and if you don't get guys back on gas immediately, you're going to get gas strapped once you want to start pumping all those things. Now, if you are going to be under a heavy attack, I would suggest getting a 4th barrack, so you're going to want to get a focus mainly on Marines and Marauders and not teching. In that case, you know, maybe 4 guys on gas total, maybe 2 on each geyser. Is more than enough, and not setting up these geysers, because Marines and Marauders and barracks are all mineral heavy. So in a match like this where you just kind of poked in and ran back and set up an expansion, this is definitely where I don't feel I'm under pressure, so I'm going to be teching, so I should have gotten these gas geysers going immediately, as with these ones. And you can see at the 8-minute mark I do have all 4 geysers to full blast. It's still not going to be enough gas to support all my teching and upgrading. I mean, I guess one response to this problem could be to get an earlier 3rd base than usual, just since you'll have the extra minerals as your gas trapped to build a command center. And obviously once you have a 3rd base, you have 2 more gas geysers, so you can fix that gas problem. But I don't think I like getting an earlier 3rd just for resource reasons. For tactical reasons, I like making a 2-base push, because as I was speaking about earlier, you gotta do a good timing push versus Protoss, I believe, earlier game to take advantage of this. So I think if you push when you have, say, your first 4 medevacs and your first couple ghosts, he should only have 2, maybe 3 Colossus at most. Or if he was going Templar, I don't think he'll quite be there. Templar is a big tech route. You gotta get the forgetting the name of that building. Oh, there's one building before the Templar Archives you have to get, then you gotta get the Templar Archives, then you gotta upgrade Psystorm, then you gotta build the Templar and work up enough energy on the Templar to cast Psystorm, and really, even before you get the Kadarian Amulets, Templar aren't that bad. It's a Kadarian Amulet that make them insane. They can like warp in storms, basically. Makes it very hard to finish off any base when they can do that. So you can see in this match my opponent's actually taking kind of a economic response in that it's doing a lot of expanding and a lot of chrono boosting on probes. So that's actually allowed his probe count to catch up to my harvester count. And then doing very gateway heavy. This is a build I think Day 9 talked about in one of his matches. Talked about how you don't need early Colossus or early Templar versus Terran. You just need to you can just overwhelm with your economy and your gateway units, and then you can tech towards those things. But I don't quite agree with that philosophy. It'll work if you can survive, but I don't think just a ton of gateway units is the best way to survive. So it looks like just scouting around the map, just making sure I haven't got a 3rd base up yet, and clearing the Xel'Nagas at a pretty good timing as I had just taken the Xel'Nagas now. So I'm getting my army up there. I still got 4 Marines in this bunker as well. I got my 1-1 upgrades complete. Got 2 medevacs out. 2 more on the way. And Ghosts should probably be coming. Not yet. A little late on my Ghosts. I do have the upgrade for them. Is there any Ghosts in here? Oh, there's already 2 Ghosts out there. They are. So yeah, I think once I got my next 2 medevacs, it will be a good time for me to push out. I got my 1-1 upgrades, I got my medevac, 4 medevacs, I got a couple EMPs I can throw down. And I should be able to get in before that critical mass of Colossus or the insanity of all those Psystorms. Twilight Council. I actually remember the name of it before I clicked on it too. Twilight Council, that's what I forgot. And there's Templar Archives going down. So it looks like he's going straight to Templar, which is a little risky, as it is a slower tech route than Colossus. And yeah, as he went for a heavy gateway opening, that's even going to slow it down more. So this is kind of an extreme example of a timing push. But even if I'm up against a couple Colossus here, I still think this is a good time to push in. I think I'd be at least at par, if not ahead. And anything we can do to dwindle the numbers back down would be awesome. Pretty good EMP there. Not so good second one. Probably should have EMP'd over here in the second one. But you can see my upgrades and my stim and EMPs and medevacs are just making this this easy cleanup. And there's the quit. So again, an extreme example, as he was probably very slow on his tech. But even if he had like his first few Templar out, he may not have Psystorm complete yet. Or if he does, we're talking like one Psystorm per Templar at this point in the game. And he won't be able to warp in new Templar that can immediately cast, as he wouldn't have the Kedarian amulets yet. And if we're against Colossus, we'd probably see 2 Colossus. Maybe if he went quick on Colossus, he would have 3. But then he would have less gateway units, so I can just blow through the gateway units quickly. So this is what you want to do. Make these sort of early pushes. I suggest first 4 medevacs you want to push at that point. And even if you just dwindle both of their numbers and your numbers, at least you're keeping it in like the mid-game longer, because you don't want to go over 150 supply versus a Protoss that's over 150 supply. It's going to be a lot of trouble for you. The more bio you get, you're basically just making the Psystorms and Colossus even do more damage. Yeah, so I think this is going to be my new strategy versus Protoss. Just kind of, obviously I have no early push because I'm doing my fast expand, but once we reach that like point where I'm able to push out, it's just going to be non-stop pressure from me. I want to keep our numbers low, I want to do a lot of early damage, and I want to win this game before that insanity of Colossus or Templar, or even both, because I find when I win, it's mostly because of just mistakes from my opponent. And that's the scenarios I talked about were ideal too. Protoss can do a lot of smart things on their own. If they start feedbacking your Ghost or getting Phoenix in the mix to mess up your Viking targeting on the Colossus. Or to start carrying a Ghost around with their army to prevent my Cloak Ghosts on the Templar, or to start spreading out their Templar rather than keeping them all clumped up for an EMP. I mean, these are just basic things they can do that would complete any chance I had. And if they don't do those basic things, I don't have much of a chance, I don't find. So I was also contemplating doing what some Terrans are doing, and that's switching more to a tank marine build. But again, I still, even with the tank marine build to counter the Colossus and Templar, I find they have the same problem where once they reach like a big army versus a big army, it's just advantage Protoss. So yeah, I'm sure I've pushed this probably killed this point by saying it over and over and over again, but yeah, mid-game pushes, my new strategy versus Protoss. I mean, I guess that was supposed to be my strategy all along, but I'm just trying to emphasize it now because I just die late game all the time versus Toss. And with that, before I say it again, I gotta end this video because I'm just babbling at this point. Alright, thanks everyone, and goodbye.
I see live people. I see dead people.
Alright, for today's thumbs up fact of the day, I'm going to talk a little bit about carriers, in particular the Interceptor. So you can see when you build a carrier, you start with 4 Interceptors, and you can actually build more up to 8. Do note it doesn't actually build instantly like it's happening here. It's just this unit test map I use does do everything instantly. So I can quickly build up interceptors from all these carriers. So I'm just going to come in here, I'll put these guys on hold position, and I'll attack with these carriers, and just let them kill off a few interceptors. So you can see I'm down to 16 interceptors total on these 6 carriers. And obviously whenever you're in a battle, obviously your interceptor count is going to be going down. They're going to tank for your carriers. either purposely or because he's not able to snipe your carriers. So oftentimes you're going to be losing interceptors during a battle. So you want to stay on top of building more interceptors. Now in StarCraft 1, that involved just clicking on the carriers and hitting I to build more interceptors, or whatever hotkey happened to be there. However, in this game, you can actually use autocast. So this is an autocast ability, just like, say, repair is an autocast ability. So you can just right-click it, and now it's on autocast, and then they'll constantly build interceptors. Of course, here it happened instantly because of this unit test map I'm using. But basically, as soon as any carrier drops to 7 interceptors with this on autocast, I'll automatically pay for another interceptor and keep purchasing interceptors as you need them. I guess 99% of the time, this is what you want to do when you're using carriers. I guess if you get in like a base trade and you're cash strapped, you may want to turn that off just so you make sure you have minerals to build a nexus or something like that. But in almost every scenario, this is a great ability, and just one less thing for you to micro. And one other note while I have this here, I want to talk about the attack upgrade for interceptors, or for carriers. If you get a weapons 1 upgrade, which we'll do right now, where is it? You can see it increase the interceptor damage from 5 to 6, which is pretty cool. You know, typical +1 upgrade. However, when you think about it, that's 2 attacks of 6, so it's actually a +2 damage upgrade. And you have 8 interceptors, not 1, so it's actually a +16 damage upgrade. That's a pretty good upgrade for +1. So carriers already do a ridiculous amount of damage, but with attack upgrades, they can do an insane amount of damage. So never underestimate the carriers. Yeah, it's hard to get like the critical mass of them, but they do work well as a support unit, and they can also create cause your opponent to make bad reactions once they see a carrier, like I did just recently, where I built way too many Marines and just got stormed to hell just because I saw a couple carriers. Yeah, pretty solid unit. So with that, autocast for interceptors, very, very handy if you didn't know about that. And attack upgrades are pretty insane on carriers as well. So with that, we'll call that the end of this thumbs up back to the day, and thank you everyone, and goodbye.